Now, we spoke about a little bit about folk music as a type of ritual, and I want to explore that a little bit. Folk music in almost every society that I know of is a kind of fundamental communal activity.
Yes.
And a village will have its version of a folk song that has significant differences from the same song, recognizably the same song, that's sung in next village 10 kilometers away.
Yeah.
Folk music became something mainly in the 19th century, but there's a fundamental difficulty, a fundamental problem, and it happens that our program deals with that a little bit. The problem is that most folk music, and it's true whether it's Chinese or Hungarian or Native American, is very restricted in the number of pitches
Yes.
that it uses, different musical pitches. It tends to be what's called pentatonic, which
Yeah.
means there are only 5 notes.
Yeah.
And if you only have 5 notes, there's only so much you can do with it. And not only that, folk music typically, originally,
Yeah.
was, if not unaccompanied, then the accompaniment was simply playing versions of the melody.
Yes.
So that when composers started playing with the idea of folk music, all they could fall back on was sort of standard European ways of harmonizing tunes. So everything, no matter what its source was, tends to sound similar, whether it's Eastern European or East Asian or North American. They have this kind of family relationship, and that lasted until very recently, especially in the Soviet
Yeah.
sphere. So it wasn't until the 20th century that composers, especially the one who's most known for this, Bela Bartok,
Yes.
explored different ways of accompanying folk music to make it more susceptible to extended treatment that has, let's say, greater depth.
Yes.
And he did this with rhythm, and he did this with very inventive harmonies that reflected what was actually in the melodies, rather than sort of a standard model, traditional type of harmony. Now we're singing a piece, 2 folk songs by the Chinese-American composer Bai Cheng. And what Bai Cheng did was take these very simple, rural folk tunes and do all kinds of things to them. For example, having them sung by different sections of the choir in different keys and breaking them up so that the whole melody emerges from little fragments, as if from a cloud, and the cloud passes and the sun comes shining down. We have the entire melody. For me, anyway, after all, I don't have to sing it, so I don't have that challenge so much of actually having to find the pitch and sing it myself.
Yeah.
So for me, this is a wonderful thing that he's doing. How is it for you?
It's definitely more challenging a way of performing that, let's say, like a more traditional arrangement. This way it becomes quite interesting because you have very few resources to hold on to for finding the pitch, and sometimes to find your entrance appropriately. Like, you cannot rely sometimes too much on the other voices. You have to be like very focused on your part and count, right? And that's always very challenging as a musician, especially as a choralist, because I think that in all the choral world, like all of the choralists are always used to use conductor's scores that have all of the other parts, and then like one always like finds themselves in a sort of like a cheat mode where you can actually like just like, oh yeah, I just follow the sopranos or the altos in this part, and then I know when I have to enter or go in, right? And it's completely unlike of how it is, for example, for an orchestra player. The orchestra player only has its part, and then like it's forced to actually be counting and like more gonna like have to engage more with the conductor. So I think that it's a very good exercise for the performer to sort of like it's sort of like it removes the rock from like under your feet, and then you have to like find actually the other resources that are actually like much more safe to ensure that you are fully prepared to do that. So I think that it's an excellent opportunity for any one of us that is performing just to have an extra training on other musical abilities that sometimes we overlook just for the speed of getting a piece done.
But the thing that I think is really special about this is that we do all the work, but the audience receives the benefit. Because the audience can absorb all of these different inputs.
Yeah.
All the work that you just were describing and the work that I have to put in is all done so that the audience doesn't have to.
Yes.
Now, I almost said so the audience can enjoy it.
Mm.
And of course, we want the audience to enjoy it. But I think there's something fundamental about concert music, classical music, if you will, that maybe differentiates it from other kinds of experiences